I'll be your pharaoh soon. Bring forth thy heaven new. Things will be.
Hi, I'm PJ Marks, owner of the Wakeboard Camp. I opened the camp in 1996 with the sole purpose of creating the best place in the world to teach people how to wakeboard better. Since then, we've spent thousands of hours teaching students of all ages and abilities. Our basic philosophy has always been that no matter what trick you're doing, the same basic skills and physics apply. As a result of this philosophy, we've broken tricks down into their most basic parts and developed exercises to simplify the learning process. At first, many of these exercises seem like they would be for beginners only, but if you take the time and examine them, you realize that they can and should be used by every rider regardless of age and ability. This series will teach you just about everything you could ever want to know about the sport of wakeboarding, from choosing your equipment, to driving the boat, to basic skills, all the way through executing the most advanced tricks. For years, people have been asking us to put all this stuff down on tape. Well, we finally feel like we know enough about the sport to write the book on wakeboarding instruction. So here it is, the book, Instructional DVD Series.
Hi, I'm Mike Mclin, and I'm here to show you how to get the most out of your DVD. First off, there are multiple audio tracks. Each audio track contains a different coach. To toggle between these different audio tracks, you need to press the audio button on your DVD player or your DVD remote control. Next, you'll see several abbreviations that we use on this DVD and throughout the book instructional series. Here's a list of some of the abbreviations you'll encounter from here on out. Along with abbreviations, you will also find progression trees in many of the trick chapters. These progression trees are lists to help you break down each trick so you can better understand how they work on the water. We designed these so you can press pause during the video and memorize each trick that makes up your goal trick and then work on them out on the water. Once you know how to break down each trick off the water, you'll be able to think through and visualize each one. When you understand this breakdown, it makes the trick that much easier when trying it behind the boat or on the trampoline. Finally, you'll notice one of 3 different edging position icons will be in the bottom left corner of each trick's chapter intro. Use these as position starting points during the approach of the trick to help you better your pop at the wake.
Hi, I'm Kyle Schmidt, head coach here at the Wakeboard Camp and instructional editor for Wakeboarding Magazine. In this DVD, you'll learn everything you need to know about spinning on and off axis on a wakeboard. To start, we'll give you a brief refresher on 180s, but we recommend that you go back and watch DVD 2, Building a Foundation, to get more detailed instruction on how to spin these tricks. We use the trampoline a lot in this video to show you how to train on land. It's a great tool used to dial in your rotations and build muscle memory through repetition, but it's very dangerous. We recommend that you seek the assistance of a certified trampoline or gymnastics coach who has the proper equipment to help you flip safely and without injury. We have an added feature in this DVD that helps you break down each spin to its base elements called the spectrum progression tree. This small section in each chapter is placed there for you to pause and study so you can find the part or parts of the spin that you are weak at. Once you find the element or elements, dial them in and you will have more success landing the goal trick. We call it spectrum because each tree starts at the bottom at one side of the spectrum with the easiest element of the trick and grows to the other side of the spectrum to the goal trick. Knowing these elements and having the ability to break down tricks will help you visualize these tricks on and off the water. You don't necessarily have to land each and every trick in the tree to land the goal trick, and some are kind of out of the ordinary for most riders. These trees are for learning, visualization, and troubleshooting purposes, and learning as many of the tricks in the tree as possible will definitely help you learn more and faster. So let's get started with a recap of 180s and move quickly to the spinning sections of this spinning DVD of the book Wakeboard Instructional Series. First, we're going to go through a brief recap of all 4 on-axis 180s before we start into the spinning section. So let's start off with the heel side, front side 180. For this trick, it's really important to have a strong switch toe side landing and edge. So you might want to go ahead and practice switch toe side edging and a little bit into switch toe side jumps before you try this trick. It's really important to approach the wake only thinking about doing a heel side jump and not thinking about doing a 180. If you get too anxious, you'll spin early and then you'll slide out on your heels for the landing. So make sure you take the trick up, move the handle to spin, and then anticipate your toe side landing and make sure you edge when you hit the water and continue your direction out to the flats. The next 180 we're going to talk about is the heel side backside 180. It really helps to practice your backside sliding for this trick. And what this does is it gets your body used to being in the backside spinning position, so you'll naturally fall into that position as you spin this 180. For this trick, don't cheat the 180 and spin it off the wake, because you'll definitely over-rotate on the landing. A lot of people get anxious, they spin off the wake, and then they over-rotate with their shoulders and head, and they slide out on their heels. Even if you're passing the handle for this trick, make sure you look away with your head on the landing and edge out on your toes. The third of the 4 180s is the toe side front side 180. For this 180, it's really easy. It's pretty much just untwisting your hips as you leave the wake. So set up with a nice progressive edge in a tall position, ride through the wake and stand tall to pop off the wake, and then just naturally let your hips untwist and move the handle a little bit to help you spin to set up for a nice heel side landing. It also helps to be able to edge switch heel side, so for this 180 you might want to practice switch for a while before you actually go and try the 180. The last 180 we're going to talk about before we get into the on-axis spin section is the toe side backside 180. For this 180, it's important to really keep your nose up off the top of the wake and not pitch over. As you approach the wake progressively, stand tall through the wake, keep the nose up, then pull and spin. If you pitch over, you'll land nose heavy and you'll go out the front. If you keep your nose up, you'll land a little bit tail heavy and it'll set you up for a perfect heel side landing. On-axis spins can seem harder than flips sometimes because of the need to set an axis. For flips, the axis is already set. You rotate around the rope and you can get away with more mistakes. For on-axis spins, you have to set the axis first before you pull and spin. The key to on-axis spinning is knowing each basic element of the spin before attempting it. So make sure you pay attention to the progression trees throughout this DVD. Find the elements that you're weak at so you can dial in your position and axis. Before we actually get into our first spin, let's talk about on-axis spinning for a second. The thing about on-axis spinning is every single spin, no matter which way you're spinning or how far you're spinning, all 4 different directions have the same position when you're facing backwards and passing the handle. Your head is going to be leaning away from the boat, your hips are going to be towards the boat, and your board is going to be the closest thing to the boat as you're spinning backwards and passing the handle. Again, it doesn't matter which way you're spinning, when you're backwards, facing away from the boat and passing the handle, you're going to be leaning in the on-axis spin position. To spin on-axis, you can spin heel side and toe side, both switch and regular, and front side and back side. If you get into the on-axis spinning position and you're straight over the board, then chances are the rope will pull you over and you'll take an edge catch. It's really important to lean away from the boat a little bit after you set your axis, and this will help you resist the pull of the rope. Even though we say on axis, you think of the axis being straight up and down. Well, since you're getting pulled, you have to lean that axis away from the boat a little bit to resist the pull of the rope. Each spin, heel side front side, heel side back side, toe side front side, and toe side back side all have the same position when you're facing backwards. And you can see this in this illustration. No matter how far you're spinning, whether it be a 180 or a 720, every single time you're facing backwards away from the boat, you're going to be in the same position. Some riders pass the handle high in their back and others pass the handle below their butt. And this is all preference. You can pass the handle a lot faster if you pass it in the small of your back, but you can also grab the board better if you pass it below your butt on some spins. The best way to get used to this position is to practice the cuffed slide in the middle of the wakes at slow speeds.
The first 360 that people usually learn is the heel side, front side 360. The biggest problem people have is getting the handle, so practice behind the boat doing surface 360s at a very slow speed. Let's check it out.
The first spin that we're going to talk about is the heel side front side 360. This is probably one of the first 360s that you'll learn because chances are you're going to learn a heel side jump before you learn a toe side jump. The thing about the heel side front side 360 is it's easy to land, but for a lot of people it's hard to spin and get the handle. For this spin, you're going to take the jump up, you're going to pull in into your back hip with the handle, and that will initiate your rotation. One thing that you want to look out for on the trampoline is to make sure you find a pause point at the top of your jump, then pull and spin. A lot of people pull on the handle too early and spin on the way up. You want to mimic the feeling that you would feel on the water, and that's to take the trick up, wait, and then pull and spin on the way down. For every on-axis 360, you can practice the 360 on the surface, going slow in the middle of the wakes, and actually moving across the back of the boat, just like you would move across the back of the boat doing the wake-to-wake variation of the trick. What this does is it actually prepares you for all the positions and all the pulls of the handle, and even the edges in and out of the trick. When you do this trick on the surface, you can really do the trick over and over again and engrave it into your muscle memory. The most important part of the spectrum tree for this trick is a switch toe side backside 180. You don't have to be able to do this trick wake to wake, but it's really important to practice it on the surface because that's the 180 that actually has the handle pass and the pull for the handle pass. After you put the two 180s together, you're ready to take it to the wake. So make sure you take the jump up, wait, then pull the handle real hard to your back hip and then pass it and spin. On the way down, it'll help to move the handle out towards the flats to stop your rotation and land back on your heels. One good tip is to make sure the passengers in the boat can see the bottom of your board, because if they can see the top of your board, that means your hips are drifting out behind you. So as you leave the wake, you need to get into position where the board is closest to the boat and the passengers can actually see the bottom graphics of the board. For most spins, you're going to use an ollie edge, and this is a slow drifting edge that keeps the line tension low so you can pull on it really hard. If you're having problems passing the handle, that probably means you're edging too hard or you're not pulling hard enough. So make sure you yank hard on the handle and create slack so you can pass it freely while you're spinning. Before you hit the water again, the rope should tighten up so you have control and you can edge out of the trick. You also want to be in the seated position. The seated position will decrease your leverage on the rope, but it will set you up for a really hard push at the wake since your legs are bent and you're in the seated position. Another thing you can think about when doing this trick is as you leave the wake, the tip of the board will be high and pointed up, and then you'll pitch over and level out. As you pitch over and level out, this is when you want to pull and spin. It's kind of a good timing device that you can use for yourself to make sure that you don't spin too early. When people spin too early, it usually throws the board out behind them and they go off axis. When they come back around, they usually catch their toe side edge or the nose of the board on the water and they take a hard fall. On the way around from the spin, look down and try to spot the whitewash of the wake on the landing side. When you spot the whitewash, this is about the time when you want to move the handle out towards the flats to stop your rotation and anticipate your heel side edge. When it comes to grabbing this trick, the slob grab is probably the best grab to learn at first, because what this will do is it'll put your hand position in a position to give you leverage to help you pull the handle and the board around for the spin. The slob grab is the front hand, and you're reaching down and you're grabbing on your heel side edge towards the nose of the board. As you can see, when you grab the board, you have to bring your knees up to your chest. It's important not to let your chest come forward because your hips will drift out behind you and you'll fall forward on the landing. Make sure you keep your upper body position and bring your knees up to you. If you bring your knees up, the board will come up high enough so you can reach it to grab the board. Eventually, as you get better at 360s, you'll use more of an ollie at the wake. And what I mean by this is you'll bring your front leg up more and you'll get a straighter up pop. It's kind of like an ollie on a skateboard. As you leave the wake, you'll lift your front knee and you'll push more off your back foot, and that will give you the ollie pop and the more straight up pop. What this skill does is it prepares you for doing, spins further, like heel side frontside fives or heel side frontside sevens. Again, I can't stress how important it is to anticipate your heel side edge and fall back against the rope. A lot of people don't trust the rope enough, and it's actually there to catch you, so use it to your advantage.
For this spin, it's a little harder to dial on your axis, but the last half of the spin, or the last 180 of the spin, is the easiest to do out of all 4 360s. As long as you get the handle and set your axis right, you're going to finish this rotation with just a twist of the hips. So let's check out how the heel side backside 360 works.
For the heel side backside 360, let's start on the trampoline. For this spin, as you leave the trampoline and push off the trampoline, you're going to push your hips towards the handle. You're going to pull hard into your front hip and turn your head down towards your back shoulder. And what this will do is it'll turn you into the backside spinning position. Again, it's important to take the trick up first before you spin. Compared to the heel side frontside 360, the backside 360, you're actually going to start spinning a little bit earlier since the spin is backside. And the reason why is because you need to have the nose of the board a little higher than the tail of the board, so you don't want to level out quite as much. What this will do is it'll stop you from actually catching your nose on the landing, and you'll land a little tail heavy on the trick. It's a lot better to land tail heavy than nose heavy. Trust me on that one. It's a good idea to actually learn how to spin further before you actually try this trick on the water. So you may want to learn how to do heel side backside fives or sevens on the trampoline before you take it to the water. Again, you can reinforce your muscle memory and engrave this trick in your muscle memory by doing the spin on the surface. So start on one side of the wake, in the middle, at slow speeds, and actually edge across the wake, and then slide backside past the handle, finish the 360, and continue out the other side. The cool thing about the heel side backside 360 is if you accomplish the first handle pass, the second half of the spin is basically just untwisting your hips. You can land this trick crossed up, so you actually don't have to get your other hand on the handle, but it's probably a good idea to get your other hand on the handle so you can fall back against the rope and edge out of the trick. Again, use a seated position and then stand tall through the wake, pushing your hips towards the handle. On this trick, it's really important to show your butt to the boat. Like, really push your butt towards the boat and allow them to see the bottom graphics on the board right off the top of the wake. From the side, you can really see how Lance drives his hips through the wake and towards the handle. As Lance approaches the wake, he's in the seated position. He stands tall through the wake and really pushes his hips towards the handle. You can really see the bottom graphics of the board the whole time he's spinning through the air. One thing about the heel side backside 360 is if you spin too early, a lot of times people loop out. When I say loop out, this means that people fall back over their tails. When they come around, they're really tail heavy, so they can't stand straight over the board and land the trick. So make sure you stand pretty even through the top of the wake with the nose a little higher than the tail, just so that manipulates you into the backside spinning position. One thing that helped me at first learning heelside backside 360 is backside airs. And what this does is you're actually spinning your lower body into the backside spinning position, but not your upper body. Eventually, after you get used to doing the backside airs, you'll naturally get into the 360 position. So try that first. When you're doing these 360s, you don't necessarily have to learn the tricks wake to wake. Like we said earlier, you can learn it on the surface first, but your next step doesn't have to be a wake to wake 360. You can learn one wake 360s very easily, and you do this by slowing the boat down, taking a short approach, and popping off the wake and spinning really fast. When you're ready to spin this trick and grab the board, there's so many different variations. Here we have an Indy backside 360. This is one of many variations, and it's a backhand grab that you really have to rush the handle pass on. If you pass the handle first, you can grab the board on the way down, and these grab variations tend to look pretty cool because it looks like you're doing a lot of stuff in the air. You're going to set up the same way for both tricks with an ollie edge, but try to be more seated if you're going to set up for a grab, just so you'll force yourself to push more at the wake. At the wake, you want to stand tall, push your hips up toward the handle, and start your spin. You'll notice in both of these pictures, these are two separate riders, but both of them have the same exact position leaving the wake. Their tip is a little bit higher than their tail, and they're leaning back over the tail just to set themselves up for the backside spinning rotation. As you can see, Bo on the left actually lands really heavy on his tail. He kind of gets a little bit off axis in the air, but he's able to recover just because of the nature of the trick.
The toe side, front side 360 is a very easy 360 to spin. The hard part is the landing. So let's take you through the steps so that you can make it an easier trick to land.
We're going to start on the trampoline for the toe side, front side 360. This trick is pretty easy to start spinning because you're already twisted and you naturally want to untwist. The first 180 is just untwisting your hips. The last 180 is actually a switch backside 180. To prepare for this trick, start on the trampoline with a good push off the mat, untwist your hips, and then pause in between the two 180s. On the way down, you're going to spin the last 180 and pass the handle. For the toe side, front side 360, you can land in 3 different positions. You can either pass the handle, you can land cuffed, or you can land blind. Being able to do all 3 landing positions will give you total control over this trick. If you get into trouble, you'll have 2 different options to actually escape a fall. After you dial this spin in on the trampoline, take it to the water and practice the spin on the surface first. Edge across the back of the boat on your toe side edge, untwist your hips for the first frontside surface 180, and then pull on the handle and slide switch backside to finish the last 180 and then edge out of the trick. When you break this trick down into its basic elements, you'll notice you have a toe side wake jump, a toe side frontside 180, then a switch heel side wake jump, but also a switch heel side backside 180. The switch heel side backside 180 is probably the most important part of this trick, and I teach a lot of people to do this by ollieing out in the flats. A lot of people think switch heel side backside 180 or switch ollie blind 180. They think it's really difficult, but it's not. Learn this trick out in the flats, and then you'll be set up for the toe side frontside 3 landing. When you take this trick to the wake, it's really important to pause in between the two 180s. As you can see here, after I take the trick up on the left, I actually keep my head facing forward, and this causes me to pause for a second. It puts a little pause in between the two 180s and sets me up perfect for the switch heel side backside 180. For this spin, you're going to want to use a little bit of legs, but not too much. If you squat down too far, it's going to give you bad position, and you'll either throw your shoulders back at the wake or you'll fall forward. So stay a little bit taller than you would on heel side and stand tall off the wake, and then move the handle to spin. This is one of the easier 360s to actually spin, but one of the harder to land. That's the thing about 360s, like the heel side front side 360, it's easier to land but harder to spin. This is the opposite. The toe side front side 360 is a lot easier to spin but harder to land because of the switch backside landing. When you land on your toes, a lot of people make the mistake of actually bringing their head around so they look at the boat. What this does is it over-rotates their shoulders, which in turn over-rotates the hips. That travels down and then over-rotates the board, causing your fins to break loose, and then you slide out and fall over your heels. Make sure that you keep your head looking away, even if you're passing the handle, until you get control. You want to look away from the boat path and down the wakes. When you're ready to grab this trick, you can do so many different variations with the toe side frontside 3. Here we have a double grab. Since you're just untwisting your hips on the first 180, it gives you time to actually grab the board twice and just do many different variations. Again, you're going to set up with a little more bend in your knees than you actually would set up for if you're not doing the grab, and pull your knees up to your chest, then grab the board and spin. It's important not to grab the board too early, because you want to make sure you solidify your pop and get a good pop off the top of the wake. A lot of riders think so heavily into the grab that they forget to pop, and they rush the trick, and they can't figure out why they don't have time to grab the board. Make sure you approach the wake thinking toe side jump, take it really high, then pull your knees in and spin. As you can see here, both riders have almost completed the 180, and their head is still facing forward as if they were just going to land the 180. They pause for a second, then they start spinning the switch backside 180, and this forces them to wait long enough so they don't over-rotate the spin. Since you're already twisted up, it's pretty easy to untwist too fast and over-rotate this trick. So make sure you're patient and you split the 180s up into two parts.
The toe side backside on-axis 360 is the hardest of the 4 on-axis 360s. The twisted toe side position makes initiating the spin very difficult. You're going to have to use more arm strength than you're accustomed to using. Here are some tips on how to make the rotation easier and how to stick that toe side landing.
Next we have the last of the 4 on-axis 360s. This is the toe side, backside 360, and it's probably the hardest 360 of the 4. The reason why it's so hard is because you're already twisted and it's hard to create spinning momentum. You have to use a lot of arm strength. The other 180s, you actually can generate a pre-turn and throw some momentum into the spin along with pulling on the handle and moving the handle to leverage your body into the spin. For this trick, you're twisted already or spun already, so basically you have to pull with your arm really hard to actually get your body moving and start to spin. The most important thing to think about on the trampoline is probably passing the handle under your butt to get yourself into the position and keeping your front foot higher than your back foot. You want to keep the nose of the board high on this trick to set yourself up for the landing. So after it's dialed in on the trampoline, you're going to practice the 360 on the surface like you did for the other 360s, moving across the back of the boat at slow speeds. For this 360, you're going to want to get the handle first before you start and initiate the first slide. If you get the handle first, then when you let go with the other hand, the rope actually starts to pull you around and does the first 180 for you, almost like a wrap trick. Then after you complete the 180, you can just spin the board the second 180. The last part of the spin is a half cab 180. Half cab means any spin or flip that you do starting switch stance and landing forward. Half cab 180s are really easy spins because you're landing forward. It's more natural to want to turn back to your normal riding position. And that's the last half of the toe side backside 360. Now when you were doing the toe side backside 180, I stressed to keep the nose of the board up in the air so you wouldn't pitch over. For this trick, you're actually going to want to pitch over a little bit so it forces you to get over your toes on the landing. So you do want to keep the nose up off the wake to get you in the backside spinning position, but then you want to actually pitch over and level out so as you spin, the rope will actually pull you and you'll spin and land over your toes. As you can see here, the tip of the board is very high, and then as the rider spins, he levels out so he gets over his toes on the landing. Most riders pass this one under their butt, and what this does is it actually manipulates your body into the backside position and makes it really easy to get the handle and get into the position at the same time. That way, after you get the handle, you can really yank hard with your opposite hand and finish the last part of the spin. Here we see a split screen shot of the 360 from the boat as well as from the side. And this gives you a really good view of the tip of the board being really high off the wake and then the rider pitching over so he can land on his toes. On the landing, you really want to move the handle back towards the wake so you get into the toe side position, and then you can fall over your toes and edge hard on the landing and continue your edge out into the flats. For toe side 360s, you're going to want to set up with a taller body position to set yourself up for a better pop. For heel side pops, it's a lot easier to push with your legs because you're facing the boat. For toe side spins and pops, it's a little bit harder, so it's more about having good position and letting the wake do the pop at first. After you get that down, you'll eventually start to add your legs because you'll be able to make up for the position at the wake. If you have your heel side front side 180s dialed, take them bigger and out into the flats before you try this trick. It'll help you with the late 180 and the impact of the 540. Let's check out the breakdown of the heel side front side 540. Alright, now you're ready for your first 540. The heel side front side 540 is probably one of the first 540s that you're going to learn. You'll actually probably learn the toe side, front side 5 first, but this is probably going to either be the first or the second 5 that you'll learn. The reason why is because most people learn a heel side, front side 360 first, and even a heel side, front side 180. So these two tricks actually make up the 540, and that's why a lot of people try this trick first. On the trampoline, you're going to want to push a little bit harder than you would for the 360, and then rush the 360 off the top of the wake. It helps to pitch over and push the nose down as you start spinning, so that way you'll get over your toes for the toe side landing. Whenever you want to land toe side, it's important to move the handle back towards the wake. What this does is it twists your body into the toe side edging position, and you can land strong against the rope. The key part of this trick is being able to do the switch toe side backside 360 on the surface. When you break down 540s, break down the 540 with the first 180 and the last 360. If you can do both of those elements of the trick, then you're going to most likely be ready for the trick and have success on the water. After all your on-land training, it's time to take this trick to the wake. You're going to set up with a seated position, you're going to edge in with a smooth edge, and you're going to push hard off the wake. As you can see here, as I leave the wake, I try to pitch over to get myself over my toes. A lot of riders spin a little bit too early on this trick and their nose stays high, and it actually forces the nose out behind them and they get off axis. When they land, they can usually get around, but they usually slide out on their heels. So you got to make sure you pitch over a little bit at the wake. It helps to get yourself to pitch over and get that nose down for the toe side landing. It helps to ollie a little bit harder off your back foot as you leave the wake and stand tall. One thing that you might want to practice is doing wake jumps, where you leave the wake, take your backhand off the handle, but then put it back on and pull a late frontside 180. What this does is it mimics the late handle pass of the 540. It's a good drill to do to quicken your hands and really get yourself used to spinning that last 180 really fast. For the 540, you have to be really quick with the handle. So you may want to try to get ahead of yourself on the trampoline and learn either a heel side, front side 7 on land before you actually try the 5 on the water. As you see here from the split view, the chase boat side over on the right, Lance is in the seated position, stands tall off the wake with the nose of the board high and the handle out so he can really pull hard to start his spin and get enough slack to pass the handle. Right here you see the nose of the board go down, and now the tail of the board is higher than the nose. This is the pitching over thing that I'm talking about that gets you over your toe side edge for the landing. In this shot you can actually see how early both riders finished the 360, and now they're ready to re-grab the handle and move it across their body for the last 180. Again, you're landing toe side, so you want to move the handle back towards the wake to set yourself up for a toe side landing so you can edge out. When you're ready to add a grab to the heel side, front side 180, you're going to have to work fast. One of the more popular grabs is a Mclin grab or a slob grab. And the reason why is because this gives you the leverage to actually help yourself spin and pass the handle quickly. So you're going to have to work fast, take the trick up, grab the board, and pull on the handle with just one arm. So it's going to take a little bit more arm strength to actually initiate and get enough slack in the rope to actually pass the handle. For the grab variation, again, you're going to try to sit a little lower so you can push harder at the wake, and then work fast in the air to get the grab and the 1.5 handle passes. Right here you can see both riders actually edging right when they hit the foam right before the trough. And what this does is it gives them a progressive edge, and it gives them more of a straight up pop, so they have time to rotate the trick and grab the board, or just get enough pop to actually rotate the trick. When you're approaching the wake, it's important to have a little bit of bend in your arms to actually get you ready to pull. If your arms are straight out, then you're not going to be in the position to be ready to actually yank on the rope so you can pass the handle and advance yourself towards the boat. So keep your arms bent and close to your sides, and then as you leave the wake and yank on the handle, and as you leave the wake, you'll be ready to actually yank on the handle and pass the handle to spin. Remember, one of the biggest mistakes on this trick is spinning too early. You want to take the trick up and actually pause for a second and then pull and spin, but you're going to have to get this done quickly because it's a lot of handle passes, because it's a quick spin and you have to get over your toes for the toe side landing. A lot of riders actually go for the grab to learn this trick, and what this does is it helps them set their axis. Even if you're not trying to grab it, it helps to actually put your hand down there and reach for the board. And you can kind of see I actually do this on this trick. It's a really quick grab, but what it does is it helps set your axis. The heel side backside 540 is a spin that takes real commitment to learning how to land switch blind. If your switch blind landings aren't strong, you'll struggle with the landing of the 540. Spend some time with your heel side backside 180s, landing blind, so you're prepared. Let's show you how to throw down this stylish spin. Alright, let's start on the trampoline to prepare for the heel side backside 540. The key to this trick is having a strong backside 180. If you don't have a strong backside 180 and a strong blind landing, then you're going to struggle with this trick. So spend a lot of time and concentrate on that element of the trick. It's also important to really dial in your heel side backside 360s. So that way you're used to taking the trick up and getting the trick done quick so you can add the 180 on the way down. As you add 180s to spins, you're going to want to spin a little quicker off the wake, and you're going to have to learn how to compensate for spinning early by adjusting your position as you leave the wake. Because most of the time when people spin early, they get off axis, so you're going to have to actually learn how to dial this in. Again, the key base part of this trick is the heel side blind landing. If you can't land blind, or if you can't do heel side backside 180s, then you're going to struggle with this trick. So make sure, again, you spend a lot of time with that part of the trick. You're going to approach the wake with a seated position, stand tall through the wake, and really push your hips towards the handle and spin a nice smooth 360. You're going to try to get the 360 done as quickly as possible. And then as you spot the wake again, you're going to pull the handle for the second time to spin the backside 180. When you land, try to get your chest over your toes so you don't over-rotate and slide out on your heels. One of the biggest mistakes riders make when they land blind is they try to land too upright with their shoulders back over their heels, and this forces them to slide out. So make sure you bend over and try to get over your toes on the landing. It's also important to keep your head facing away from the boat when you land so you don't over-rotate and slide out. As you can see, when the rider leaves the wake, he pulls really hard and advances himself towards the rope, but not too hard, so when he comes around and finishes a 360, he can pull again to do the last 180. If you watch closely, you'll see the rope get loose during the 360, and then it tightens up and the rider pulls again for the last blind 180. Make sure you set up with a seated position and a nice slow drifting turn. And then as you enter the trough, add a little bit of edge, but not too much so the line's not too tight. You're going to stand tall through the wake and pop the trick up, pushing your hips towards the boat and pulling the handle in off the top of the wake. Remember, you want to spin this trick a little bit earlier than the normal 360, so you have time to spin the extra 180 on the way down. The whole time the rider is actually spinning the 540, you should be able to see the bottom graphics of the board. If you can see the top graphics of the board, then the rider is getting off axis and getting pulled towards the boat. This usually happens when the rider spins too early, so make sure you concentrate on taking the trick up and setting your axis off the top of the wake. In this shot, you see the rider actually passing the handle for the last 180, but leaning over his toes so he prepares for his toe side landing, and then the rider edges out to continue his direction.
The toe side frontside 540 is another trick with an easy landing. Much like a heel side backside 360, the last 180 is just an unwinding and a twist of the hips. So just pay close attention to the progression tree to learn this trick, and it shouldn't be too hard.
The toe side frontside 540 is probably one of the easier of the 4 540s. The reason why is because you're untwisting your hips on the takeoff, and then you're landing heel side or switch heel side. Landing on your heels is a lot easier than landing on your toes, even though it's a switch landing. You can fall back against the rope and even butt check or land on your butt to land your first 540s. On the trampoline, concentrate on really starting in the toe side position, and that way you'll feel the line tension against your back arm, and it'll mimic the edging position at the wake. Stand tall off the trampoline with a good push, but don't pull on the handle quite yet. Let your hips untwist before you actually pull on the handle. If you pull too early, you'll pull yourself forward and off axis, and you'll set yourself up for a nice toe side edge catch and a face plant, and this doesn't feel too good. For this trick, remember to split it up into the first 180 and the last 360. So your switch heel side backside 360 is the part of the trick that's going to help you out for the landing. When you take it to the water, you're going to set up with a slow edge in a taller position. As you enter the trough, it's going to help to squat down a little bit to prepare yourself for a good push off the wake, because you're going to need a little more time to spin the 540. If you spin your hips off the top of the wake, you'll notice you'll be in a switch, heel side, backside, spinning position. So after you untwist your hips, you're going to want to push your hips towards the handle and then pull the handle hard in to advance yourself towards the boat to create slack so you can pass the handle. As you finish the 360, try to spot the wake on your landing side and then fall back against the rope over your heels so you can edge out of the trick. Again, set up with a nice slow drifting turn in a taller position. Let the boat do the first half of your edge, and then as you enter the trough, give a little bend in your knees and lean down your back arm to edge through the wakes. Try not to let your upper body come forward, because if you stand tall, then you'll be throwing your shoulders back, and this will make you go out the back for the spin. Off the top of the wake, stand tall against the rope, unwind your hips, and get into the heel side, backside spinning position. Pass the handle smoothly behind your back, and then bring your head around so you can spot the wakes. On the way down, make sure you anticipate your heel side edge and continue your direction out towards the flats. When you're approaching the wake on this trick, Try to stand a little heavier on your tail, and what this will do is it'll force you into a better pop. A lot of riders lean towards the wake and they get hung up at the wake and it pitches them forward and they catch their edge on the way down. When you're grabbing the toe side, front side 540, you can grab it in many different ways. Here we actually have a slob toe side, front side 540, and this is one of the harder variations of a grab 540. For this trick, it's a lot easier to grab it Mclin because it mimics the switch heel side Mclin position. So as you approach the wake, make sure you bend your knees so you can push a little bit harder at the wake. Remember, pushing harder will give you enough pop to complete the grab and the spin at the same time. Whenever you do spins with grabs, remember one hand's going to be grabbing the board, so you're going to have to use twice the strength in your arm to actually pull on the handle and advance yourself towards the boat. So you might want to spend a lot of time actually riding with one hand, maybe carving around to build up some arm strength.
The heel side backside 720 is a very rare trick seen off the wake. It's usually saved for the double up. Make sure you have your switch toe side, front side 540s dialed in so you can unwind for that last 180. Now let's check out how Jerry Nunn does it.
Now we're going to take you through the first 720 on this video. This is the heel side backside 720. It's one of the harder of the on-axis 720s, but it's one of the cooler looking sevens of the bunch. You're going to really have to spend a lot of time on the trampoline getting your handle passes down and dialing in your rotation. This isn't really a trick that's often taken wake to wake, but here you see Jerry Nunn actually doing a heel side backside 7 wake to wake. You have to spin really fast to accomplish this spin. As you can see, both on the trampoline and on the water, both riders push their hips really hard towards the handle right off the mat to initiate their spinning rotation. Each time the rider passes the handle, they'll be in the exact same position whenever they're facing backwards and passing the handle. So it's important to really practice your backside slides and your cuffed slides so you really build up your muscle memory in this position. Whenever you break up a 720, you can break it up into the two 360s, but that doesn't really help you learn how to do the trick. Try breaking it up into the first 180 and the second 540. If you can do the second 540, then you're probably prepared to actually do the 720. For this trick, it's going to take a really hard yank on the handle off the top of the wake. You're going to have to pull really hard to create enough slack so you can pass the handle freely and spin your body fast enough to complete the rotation. For this trick, again, set up with a seated position so you can use your legs very heavily at the wake. You want to drift in and edge as you go through the trough, but don't edge too hard so you keep the line tension tight but at a minimum. As you stand tall through the wake, start to advance yourself towards the boat and pull the handle to your front hip, pushing your hips towards the handle. Remember, on heel side backside spins, it's important to see the bottom of the board, as you can see here, throughout the entire spin. If we start to see the top of the board, then the rider's going to get into trouble and catch his edge or take a fall. The last half of this trick is a switch toe side front side 540. so it might be helpful to go out and learn this trick before you actually try the wake-to-wake heel-side backside 7. If you're great at landing blind, both switch and regular, this trick shouldn't be a problem with a little work on the trampoline. The toe side frontside 540 and the switch backside 180 combine to make up the 540. And if you're better at landing blind with your regular heel side backside 180s, you may want to try this trick switch to favor your stronger blind landing. The second 720 that we're going to talk about is the toe side frontside 720. This was one of the first 720s landed on a wakeboard, but it's lost its popularity to the off-axis version of this trick. The toe side frontside 7 is a hard trick to keep your axis and actually spin fast enough and land on your toes. So spend a lot of time on the trampoline and maybe even take the trick as far as 900s, so actually spinning a 7 will feel easy and you'll be prepared to take it to the water. The last part of the spin is a switch heel side backside 540, and you want to make sure that you have your switch blind landings down and strong. As you can see here on the trampoline, I land with my head facing away from the rope so I can fall over my toes and edge out of the trick. Even though there's many elements in this spectrum tree, the most important part of this trick is the switch backside 180 landing. So spend a lot of time with your switch blind landings and your switch backside 180s. If you were to focus on another element of the trick, it's probably the switch heel side backside 540. For this trick, set up with some bend in your knees so you can really push at the wake. You're going to want to leave the wake a little heavy on your tail so you can spin early off the top of the wake. If you set up over your nose, you'll jam the nose of the board into the wake and you'll get pitched out the front. You're going to have to spin this trick early off the wake, and you're going to have to learn how to actually spin through the wake but still keep your axis. So set up with a nice slow edge, add some edge through the trough, get ready to push off the wake, and then advance yourself towards the rope. As you untwist your hips, remember you're going to turn into the switch heel side backside 360 spinning position. Right here you can see the rider's body is leaning back away from the wakes, and what this does is it allows them to leave the wakes and spin at the same time. As soon as the rider untwists his hips, you can see him yank hard in on the handle, so he pulls enough slack into the handle so he can pass the handle twice, nice and freely. Right here you can actually see the rider spot the wake so he can pull again on the handle and land switch blind. The main trick to landing the spin is being able to stop your rotation, and you do this by actually moving the handle back towards the wake on the landing. A lot of riders don't think about what they should do with the handle on the landing, and their head usually comes around towards the boat and they slide out on their heels. Now that you have your handle passes dialed and you know how to keep an axis, let's change that and teach you how to get off axis. Off-axis spins, rodeo spins, or monkey spins give your normal spins a new flair and teach you how to spin faster and further. For on-axis spins, we stressed that it was important to take the jump up, set the axis before you pulled and spin. This was important so you wouldn't take falls. For off-axis spins, it's similar. You still have to set an axis, but it's a controlled axis. We're going to teach you how to get your body drifting out behind you on this axis, but control it so you can land these tricks. Let's take a little bit of time and explain exactly what an off-axis spin is. An off-axis spin is a spin where you actually let the board drift out behind you and your body's on a 45-degree axis. The difference between an off-axis spin and an on-axis spin is basically the difference between the board position. When we were talking about on-axis spins, we stressed the importance of having the board in between you and the boat so you can resist the pull of the rope. For off-axis spins, you're actually going to let the board drift behind you, and you have to be able to get the board back underneath you by pulling on the handle and moving the handle. Off-axis spins take a little bit more arm strength and a little bit more control of the line tension to be able to manipulate your body, get the board out behind you, and then pull it back in for the landings. A good way to learn this is to actually go on the trampoline and learn how to do what I call butt-out railies. A butt-out railie is basically a railie where you're not extending your legs, you're just letting your hips out behind you. This is the first step in learning how to get off axis on the trampoline. So basically you're going to let your hips out and then push the handle straight down towards the mat to get your feet back underneath you. The next step is to do the butt-out railie and then pull a frontside 180 on the way down. And this is how you're going to work your way towards the off-axis 180. So basically you're going to let your butt out behind you and then move the handle to the side on the way down to do the frontside 180. The next step is actually to flow both the butt-out railie and the 180 together off the mat of the trampoline. So basically, as you push off the trampoline, you're going to open up your body just like you would do for a 180, and then you're going to push the handle down and kind of behind you to get into the toe side position on the landing. Eventually, once you learn how to let your body drift out behind you, you'll do the 180 to set your axis, then you'll pull on the handle and actually pass the handle for 360s and even further. The cool thing about off-axis spins is you're kind of mixing a flip with a spin, so you have a lot more forgiveness with your axis. You can make more mistakes and get away with them. Another good way to learn how to get off-axis is on the wake skate. What you want to do is you want to take the same steps. You want to learn a butt-out railie first. So edge in, load the line like you would do a railie, and just let your butt out, not your feet, and then push the handle down to get your feet back underneath you. Next step is to do the butt out crip, and basically you're going to turn off the wake, push the handle back down towards the water and back towards the wake on the landing side, and get your feet out in front of you so you can pin drop in the water. After you feel comfortable getting off axis, go ahead and try an off axis 360 by setting your axis, doing the 180, and then pulling the handle hard to your back hip so you can spin all the way around and do a 360. For this spin, your feet should come right back underneath you and you should pin drop in the water. After you feel comfortable getting off axis on the wake skate, go ahead and strap the board on and take the same steps to learn the off axis 180 on a wakeboard. Eventually you'll get enough control over the line and you'll be able to manage the line tension on the way down to pass the handle, pull and spin, and get your feet back underneath you.
Now that you've taken the proper steps to get off axis, this spin should fall right into your bag of tricks. It's a fun 180 that you can add a lot of different poke and grab variations to. Some riders skip this step and go straight to the 360, developing a bad form which causes problems with their handle pass. Take the time to learn this 180 and it will pay off in the long run. Let's check it out.
You can use the techniques that I discussed in the earlier section for every off-axis spin. You can take the steps to learn how to let your body drift out behind you on the trampoline and then eventually take it to the water. Every off-axis spin can be broken down, and the cool thing about off-axis spins is you're kind of mixing the axis of a flip with the axis of a spin, so you can get away with more mistakes. For the heel side frontside off-axis 180, you're going to load the line a little bit at the base of the wake, and on the trampoline you're going to jump about a foot in front of your normal bounce so you can actually push away as you leave the trampoline. And this is basically pushing your hips out behind you so the board will drift in the off-axis position. A A lot of people actually learn to do this by grabbing the board and letting the board drift out behind them each time a little bit further, but this is kind of the long route. You can do this on the trampoline as well. You can grab your feet and let your feet drift out behind you, but it takes a lot longer. This type of trick, the heel side front side 180, is more related to the railie, so you should go ahead and take the steps to learn a railie on the trampoline, at least, if you don't want to learn the railie on the water. When you're ready to take it to the wake, you want to load the line as you get closer to the wake so you have line tension and water pressure on the board to push the board out behind you. Try to sit down a little bit so you can use your legs and get more of a straight up pop, and it's easier to learn this trick wake to wake at first. You want to start slow on your turn and then edge at the bottom of the wake. Again, you can take the steps of learning a mute 180 and letting that mute 180 drift out behind you each time. And a lot of riders do that because they don't want to actually take hard falls. So if you want to take that route, it takes a lot longer, but you will take less falls when you learn it that way. As you can see here, the rider has his knees bent, but his shoulders are back against the rope so he can load the line. As he leaves the wake, he pushes his hips out behind him and the board drifts out into the off-axis position. On the way down, you want to really push hard down on the handle to get your feet back underneath you. But since you're doing a 180, you want to push the handle back towards the wake to get into the toe side position. Heel side, front side, off axis 180s are really cool 180s because you can add all kinds of different grab variations to the trick. Whenever you do the grab variation, you want to make sure you grab the board before you let the board out behind you. Almost like you would do on a hoochie glide. It's very similar. You want to think about the same thing. Take a real mellow edge, load the line at the bottom of the wake, and then grab down towards the board before you let it out behind you. When you're approaching the wake on this trick, try to relax your arms, but still keep a little bend in your arms. So that way you can let the handle out like you would for a railie. But if you have the handle all the way in, when you let the board drift out behind you, you're not going to be able to pull on the rope to get the board back underneath you. So you want bend in your arms so you have control, but you don't want the handle to be all the way in so you can still pull on it on the way down. As you can see here, the arm that's on the handle is really tight, and Lance is actually getting ready to push the handle down towards the water and back towards the wake so he can get into the toe side edging position and continue his edge out into the flats. For the heel side, front side, off axis 180, it's important to really spin the board slow off the wake. You don't want to throw the board out there really fast because what will happen is the board will fly out there and it'll come back underneath you too quickly and then you'll slide out on your heels. For this spin, like I discussed earlier, a lot of riders actually throw a mute grab into the spin since your body is opening up that direction. And having your hand on the board actually gives you a little bit more leverage to pull the board back underneath you. When you don't have your hand on the board, it makes getting the board back underneath you a little bit harder because your body's more stretched out. When your body's more compact, it's a lot easier to get the board back underneath you. A lot of times when people spin off axis, they lead the rotation with their arm, and as you can see on the right, my arm and my elbow I'm kind of elbowing the sky, and that helps me throw the board in the right direction to initiate the off-axis spin. As you can see here, both riders have the handle turned down towards the water because they're actually pushing the handle straight down towards the water. They're not really pulling it in, they're pushing it straight down so they can get their feet back underneath them. Again, you want to make sure that you land on your toe side edge by breaking at the waist and edging out and continue your edge out into the flats.
The Indy Glide and the 911 are two variations of the air railie and the roots of the heel side, backside, off-axis 180. This 180 is the hardest of the 4 off-axis 180s, but it always looks very stylish and very tech when done wake to wake. Let's take it to the trampoline first.
The next off-axis 180 that we're going to talk about is the heel side, backside, off-axis 180. Most riders that are able to do this trick have really good control over 911s and Indy Glides. The 911 is a variation of a railie and it has a backside spin incorporated into it. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this onto the trampoline first and learn how to do a 911 where you twist your body backside in the railie position, and then learn how to grab that 911 and you'll call that an Indy Glide. From there, you're going to give a hard yank on the handle and continue your rotation around backside, and then make sure you're really strong at blind landings because you really need that skill for this spin. Again, whenever you're landing on your toes, you want to break at the waist and make sure you look away from the boat and lean out over your toes to continue your direction. For the heel side, backside 180, it helps to take a shorter approach, and what this will do is it'll force you to edge the wake and it'll give you enough push on the board from the water to get the board out behind you. Most riders do off-axis backside 180s with grabs. I don't see many riders do them without grabs at all. And what this does is it helps you get into the position right off the wake and stay compact so you can pull on the handle and spin the backside 180. This is a pretty difficult spin. Even though it's just a 180, it's a pretty difficult spin just because of the awkward backside off-axis position. Again, it's important to really have good control over your Indy Glides, and then you're going to really think about that Indy Glide as you leave the wake. And after you get into the Indy Glide position, you're going to yank on the handle really hard, pull it into your front hip, and then turn your head over your back shoulder. As your head turns over your back shoulder, make sure that you look away from the boat and don't bring your head around towards the boat. You want to look down the wake and down the boat path to set yourself up for a blind landing. You can do this spin with all 3 different handle pass variations. You can pass the handle early and land with the handle in your hand. You can land cuffed, and you can even land blind. The coolest looking way to me is probably the blind landing, just because it looks so technical. For 180, you can really make this trick look like a hard trick if you learn how to land it blind. When you have a grab on the board, this really keeps you compact, and you can see how the rider's body is really folded up in half. And it's important to bring your heels down towards your butt so that the trick doesn't look too flippy or like a tantrum to blind. So make sure that you bring your heels down to your butt to keep the board, about head level. You don't want it to get above your head, and then the trick will look like a flip. The toe side front side off-axis 180 is not that popular of a trick right now, but it's starting to make its move as a wake-to-wake variation of the batwing. So learning the batwing is key to turning this 180. At the same time, you should learn how to land your on-axis toe side front side 180 crossed up. It'll teach you how to move the handle, spin your body, and get your hips into the landing position. The next 180 is the toe side, front side, off-axis 180. And basically this is just a batwing or a wake-to-wake batwing with a late crossed up front side 180. So it's important to really get your batwings down first, and then you'll be able to do this trick no problem. It's basically just a handle move on the way down. On the trampoline, you're going to see that it's important to really stand in the toe side position, and then off the mat, push your hips out behind you and grab your feet. As you let your feet out behind you, make sure you grab down towards your feet before you let your feet out, and this will ensure that you grab the board before the board gets too far out behind you. To get down and turn the 180, you have to push the handle straight down but across your body. This is kind of a weird position at first, and you really have to move the handle far across your body to cross up your hips and land in a heel side position. As soon as your feet hit the water, try to get your other hand on the handle and fall back against the rope so you can edge out on your heels. For the toe side, front side, off axis 180, you want to use a taller position so you get a good load on the line at the base of the wake. As you enter the trough, lean down the rope a little bit so you create a little bit of leverage on the line. You don't want too much, because if you get too much line tension, you're going to get really stretched out and you won't be able to pull yourself back in and get crossed up easily. So just a little bit of leverage across your back arm and load the line and stand tall through the wake. To the top of the wake, start to push the board a little bit out in front of you and then reach down for the grab before you let the board out behind you. As you can see, Ben gets the grab early before the board actually gets all the way out behind him. Now on the way down, look how far his arm is moved across his body. This is what helps him cross up his hips and spin the frontside 180 on the way down. Like I said earlier, this is a really awkward spin, and it's a trick that's gaining popularity. A lot of people are doing it as a different wake-to-wake variation.
The toe side, backside, off axis 180 is a trick that is easily learned on the trampoline. Once your wake-to-wake bat wings are solid and your body position is dialed in on the trampoline, you can take it to the water.
The next 180 is the toe side, backside, off axis 180. This trick is sometimes called a bat wing to blind. I like to call it a bat wing to blind when people take it out into the flats, because you have to do more of a longer bat wing and then a blind 180. So it's more of a combination of two tricks. When you do it wake to wake, it's more of an off axis 180, because you're not really in the bat wing position long enough to really call it a bat wing to blind. You actually flow the trick. You get into the bat wing position. As soon as you're in the bat wing position, you're already pulling on the handle and spinning, so it flows more into like a circle. This trick takes a lot of arm strength. It helps to have really good, wake to wake control of your bat wings. And it also helps to be really strong at toe side, backside 180s. On the trampoline, it's going to be a little tougher to do this trick because the boat's not moving forward and you don't have the line tension that you usually will have on the water. When you take this trick to the water, you want to use a taller position, and you want to try not to load the line as much as possible. The more line tension you have on this trick, the more difficult it's going to be. So let the boat do more of the edge for you, and then just give a little bit of juice right at the bottom of the wake and stand tall, pushing your hips out behind you. Remember, make sure to grab the board before you let it out behind you. One thing that's tough with this trick is turning your head after you let the board out behind you. A lot of people want to keep their heads facing the boat for such a long period of time that it doesn't let their rotation flow like it should. So as soon as you let the board out, make sure you turn your head, because turning your head is going to turn your shoulders, and that's going to help you rotate. So don't be afraid to turn your head. A lot of riders learn this trick without a grab, but I also see a lot of riders learn it with a grab, because they can take, slower steps. They can do bat wings over and over and over again, or wake-to-wake bat wings over and over again. And then eventually, when they feel comfortable with one, they can just give a hard pull on the handle to try the backside 180. As you can see, as Ben approaches the wake, he has kind of a taller position. His knees are rolled forward so he can still push off the top of the wake, but his body's pretty straight from his knees to his shoulders. And this is what gives him the leverage to do the actual wake-to-wake bat wing part of the trick. His arms are nice and relaxed with a little bend so he has control. And this allows him to let the handle out smoothly but still pull it in to yank the 180 and rotate the trick. Whenever you do a wake-to-wake, toe-side, backside 180, you'll notice that the board will be out in front of you a little bit as you leave the wake. And what this does is it helps you get the grab, because you're going to reach out in front of you a little bit, then you're going to let it out behind you, and it makes kind of a circle and helps you rotate the trick. As you pull on the handle and rotate, make sure you spot the landing and fall back against the rope on your heel side edge and continue your edge outward. It's really important to keep your direction on this trick. Remember, it's a lot safer to fall back on your heels and your butt than fall forward on your face. So actually try to fall back against the rope when you land.
The heel side front side off axis 360 should probably be the first off axis handle pass spin that you should try. This is where good habits start and bad habits need to be stopped. Your board shouldn't go above your head, and your off axis spin shouldn't resemble a flip in any way. Take the time to do that off axis 180, and this will increase your chances of landing your first 360.
Alright, we've gone through all the off axis 180, so let's move on to the 360s. We're going to take the same steps. We're going to start with the heel side, front side, off axis 360 first. So basically, what you're going to do with this trick is you're going to break it down into two steps. You're going to combine the heel side, front side, off axis 180 with a switch, toe side, back side, off axis 180. And that's going to help you land this trick. So practice these two different tricks separately on the trampoline and then put them together, and you'll find out that you'll be able to get the axis, pull on the handle, make all the handle passes and the rotations very easily. Before you actually pass the handle, you'll start to push the handle down towards the water, and this will initiate your feet being pulled back underneath you. It also gives you enough pull on the handle to create enough slack to pass the handle, so you're accomplishing two things at one time. You're bringing your feet back underneath you and you're pulling to pass. Like I said on the trampoline, it's important to be able to do a switch toe side, back side, off axis 180 for this spin. And make sure that you have your heel side, front side on axis 360s down before you try this trick. A lot of riders tend to make this trick too flippy by letting their heels out away from their butt. Here you can see that Mike pulls his heels down to his butt, and that's what makes this spin look off axis and not too flippy. If you let your heels out, the board will go way above your head and it'll look more like a handle pass back roll. And you definitely don't want to get into a habit, because when you try off axis 5s, you'll definitely slide out on your heels every time. So use the middle position for this trick so you can load the line but still push off the wake. You need a little leverage on the rope, so you're going to load the line with your shoulders, use a progressive edge, and really use that line tension to your advantage. So again, start slow, and then as you get to the foam, increase your edge and load the line through the trough of the wake. As you ride up the wake, stand tall, pushing your hips out behind you, let the board out behind you, and I like to tell people to draw their axis with their elbow, almost like if someone was standing behind you and kind of higher up, you would elbow them in the face with your elbow. And this will help you draw your axis and get the right off-axis position. As you pass the handle and come around for the landing, try to look over your front shoulder to spot the landing and push the handle out to the side, the same way that you would do for a back roll to stop your rotation for a back roll. This spin naturally wants to go to 5, so you actually have to slam on the brakes and stop the rotation to land in the heel side position. When you're ready to grab this trick, the easiest grab is probably the mute grab, kind of like what you used for the heel side, front side, off axis 180. So basically, you want to use a little bit more of a seated position, so the board's a little bit closer and you can use your legs off the wake. And remember again, make sure you grab the board before you let the board out behind you. I can't stress this enough. So many people let the board out first and they get stretched out and they can't control the rotation and they flip and then they slide out on their landings. So be patient. As your hips are drifting out, grab the board before they actually get all the way out. You can do so many different variations of off-axis spins. There's so many grabs and pokes. They just give you enough time to add so many different things to the tricks. You'll have so much fun with off-axis spins. I think that's why they gained a lot of popularity in wakeboarding these days, because you can do so much more with them than you can with, on-axis spins. I think they just look like they have more flair and more stuff going on. As you can see, the difference between the non-grab and the grab version of this trick, for the grab version on the left, the rider is seated a little bit more because it's important to use your legs a little bit more at the wake. You'll also notice that the board is a little bit further out in front of the rider than it is on the non-grab version on the right. Both riders use the handle the same way on the way down, and you can see as they push the handle out towards the flats to stop the rotation. This puts them right into a great landing position.
The heel side backside off axis 360 is a great trick to learn off the double up. Assuming that you have the motions dialed on the trampoline, the double up will give you enough time to rotate this off axis spin and get the board back underneath you. The next 360 that we're going to talk about is the heel side backside off axis 360. And for this 360, as strange as this sounds, it helps to be able to do switch toe side, front side off axis 540s. This spin is actually the last half of the switch toe side, front side off axis 5, but toe side, front side off axis 5s are easier than heel side, backside off axis 360. I know that sounds weird, but as soon as you learn how to break all this stuff down, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So you might want to actually take the steps to learn a switch toe side, front side off axis 540, and that will help you get the rotation for this trick. Again, it also helps to have control of your 911s and your indie glides, because that's what this trick is based off of, and that's kind of the first thing you do off the wake, is you get your body into that position.
After some work on the trampoline, you should be ready to take it to the wake. A lot of riders take this trick out into the flats because the line tension allows them to control the rotation as they rotate through the air. But if you don't want to take it out in the flats, you can always do it wake to wake. You just have to take a short approach so you force yourself to edge. Edging on this trick is what pushes the board out behind you, so make sure you edge at the wake and not too early out in the flats. Again, you're going to let the board out behind you in the indie glide position. And like a lot of the other spins, a lot of riders learn this trick with a grab because it helps get their body into position so they can spin the trick. When we get to the toe side, front side off axis 5, you'll see the similarity in positions as the rider rotates backside for this spin. A lot of riders learn this trick switch as well. The reason why is because a lot of times they'll learn a regular toe side, front side off axis 5 first. So the last half of that 5 is a switch heel side, backside off axis 3. So they're set up basically for the rotation. All they have to do is figure out the switch pop, and they usually learn the trick pretty fast. I actually learned this trick off of a kicker switch because I already knew how to do regular toe side, front side off axis 5s, and it was really easy to learn for me. So you may want to take that route. If not, again, I can't stress how important it is to be able to do indie glides and 911s, so you understand how to get your body out behind you and twisted backside so you can rotate, the backside 360. You might want to combine a little bit of a trip flip edge with your progressive edge, and what this will do is it will kick you over backwards and kind of get you in the off-axis position. You don't want to trip it too much because then you'll flip too much and the board will get too far above your head. But this definitely helps get you into the rotation and into the off-axis position. Remember, a trip flip edge is where you edge a little bit harder at the beginning and then you switch edges at the wake. So you want to combine a progressive edge, and you do this by starting really slow and edging progressively, but as you enter the trough, begin to switch over to your toe side edge so you get tripped a little bit. This will make you go a little bit straighter up into the air so you can rotate. The most popular grab for the heel side, backside off axis 3 is the indie grab, and that's because of the close relation to an indie glide. When you want to grab this trick, it helps to actually give yourself a good kick in the chest with your knees as you let the board drift out behind you. And this does two things. It actually kicks you over into the right rotation and kind of flips you a little bit, but not too much so it looks like a flip. It just pushes your body up and over and gets the board above your head a little bit so you can rotate the backside 3 and have the line tension to control the trick. You can see even if you don't grab the board, your body's still folded in half, but when you grab the board, your heel's a little bit closer down towards your butt. If you don't grab the board, you get stretched out and the board gets over your head, and it looks a little bit too flippy. So make sure that you bring your heels down towards your butt when you rotate this trick. That's really important for off-axis spinning. You don't want to be that rider that really has his legs stretched out, because being stretched out and having off-axis spins that look like flips is not good style. So make sure you concentrate on tucking your heels down. For the toe side, front side, off axis 360, you'll probably skip ahead a step and learn the 5 before the 3. The reason why is because people find it easier to land on their heels and do the 540, then take a step back and learn the awkward rotation of the 360. The key to this spin is all in the upper body and head position. So let's start on the trampoline and gain some muscle memory and some body position before you take it to the water. So let's go ahead and start this trick off on the trampoline. This is the toe side, front side off axis 360, and it's one of the harder of the 3 off-axis 360s because of the blind landing. The key to this trick is really leaving your head facing the boat for as long as possible and just rotating your lower body. So as you push off the mat, concentrate on leaving your head facing towards where the rope is attached. Draw the axis with your elbow and then pull your knees up to your chest to initiate the rotation. It also helps to grab this trick because it helps you stay compact and just makes your rotation compact so you can get into the blind position on the landing. The hardest part about rotating this trick is not over-rotating to 5. Most people actually learn a toe side, front side, off-axis 540 before they learn this trick because of the awkward landing. So it's really comfortable for them to actually turn to 5 and land on their heels. So it's something you have to resist and hold back. One of the key parts of this trick is the switch heel side, backside 180 and the blind landing that goes along with it. So really concentrate on that and build up this blind landing before you actually take the trick to the water. For this trick, as you approach the wake, you're going to bend your knees a little bit, but you're going to mix a progressive edge with a trip flip edge at the wake. So you're going to edge progressively at first, but when you get to the wake, you're going to stop your edge a little bit so you get tripped by the wake, and that kicks you over into the off-axis position. Again, like I mentioned before, it's really important to leave your head facing the boat. If you turn your head off the wake, then you're going to over-rotate the trick and you're going to go 5. One cool thing about the toe side, front side, off-axis 360 is you can do so many different variations. You can pass the handle early and just land with the handle in your hand. You can land blind. You can even do what we call elephant 360s. These are when you go all the way around to 540, so you actually do a toe side, front side, off-axis 540, and then you shift your body back to 360. So it's kind of like a rewind trick. Here we have both riders. You can see one from the boat, one from the side. And they actually both take a really slow drifting turn, and then at the wake, you can see them back off their edge a little bit so they actually get tripped by the wake. When you get to these tricks, you're going to have to learn how to manipulate the board, and what I mean by that is you're going to have to learn how to make the board, like the tip of the board, go up the wake and manipulate your body over the tail for a second, so that way when you leave the wake, you can really buck yourself back over the nose. And what this does is it gives you the pop for certain spins. So on this trick, you definitely want to manipulate the board at the wake. You want to push the board up the wake first and leave your body behind, and then actually push off your back foot as you leave the wake so you get into the position. In this shot, you can actually see both riders landing looking away from the boat, and this is super important for this trick. So make sure you get comfortable in your cuffed and blind edging positions before you actually take this trick to the water. For the elephant variation of the off-axis 360, you're going to want to take a more aggressive edge so you have a tighter line. And in order to get your body back to the 360 position, you're going to want to use the handle and you're going to want to push it back towards the wake. Try to over-rotate the spin at first and then stop your rotation by moving the handle on the landing.
The toe side off-axis backside 360 is a natural progression from the backside 180. The best thing you can do for this trick is to give a good, strong tug on the handle. Once you have your switch heel side, front side off-axis 540s dialed in, it shouldn't be a problem for you.
For the last of the off-axis 360s, we're going to go over the toe side, backside, off-axis 360. On the trampoline, this trick feels a lot different because you don't have the line tension of the rope because the boat's not moving you forward. But you can still roll this trick and create as much line tension as you need to actually do the trick on the trampoline. Again, you're going to mix toe side railie with this trick, but remember, don't let your feet out all the way. Keep your knees up to your chest so the board doesn't get too high over your head. So off the trampoline, push your hips out behind you, and then you're going to want to roll this trick more. You're going to want to roll it a lot more than the actual toe side off axis backside 180. The toe side off axis backside 180 you can split up into two parts. You can do the bat wing and then pull it to blind. This one you actually want to roll a lot more so you get enough momentum to get around for the 360. As you come down for the landing, make sure you move the handle across your body and then spot your landing and pass the handle. Again, move the handle across your body so you can get in the toe side edging position and then continue your edge out towards the flats. For the toe side backside off axis 3, this trick isn't on the spectrum tree, but a lot of people learn switch heel side front side off axis 5 because the last half of that 5 is the actual toe side backside off axis 360. So the last half of the 5 actually prepares them for the spin. So if you take some time and learn that trick, you should have better success being able to roll into this trick and getting the landing position. On the water, you're going to want to use a progressive edge, just like you did before for the 180. But as you leave the wake, you're going to want to initiate the rotation a lot faster and roll into the trick. Again, this is just like doing the toe side backside off axis 180, but you just have to move the handle across your body as soon as you get it and then pass it again. Again, push it back towards the wake so you get in the landing position. Since you're rolling the trick off the wake, you can really get inverted on this trick and make this trick look really cool. A lot of riders are actually doing leg grabs on this trick too because the board's right there, really close to you. So there's many different variations that you can do, and being able to roll this trick will get you into a position that you can actually take the trick to 5 and fall into a heel side landing. So there's two different ways of doing the trick. You can split it up and do it pretty flat, or you can really get yourself inverted so you fall into that landing. So at the wake, again, make sure you lean down your back arm to build that pressure on the rope and pressure on your edge so the board will drift out behind you. But make sure you don't edge too hard because you need to be able to manage the line tension. As you leave the top of the wake, stand really tall, pushing your hips out behind you, and let your shoulders come forward. As you get into the air, it helps to grab the board because it gets your body into a good position. Most off-axis spins, it helps to actually grab the board to spin these tricks. For some reason, it just forces your knees into your chest, which makes you spin faster, and it just makes you fall into positions better. So you'll see a lot of these spins with grabs, no matter if we're teaching them without the grab or not. Again, here you'll see Ben leaning down the rope at the wake, so he gets good line tension at the wake. But you don't want to lean too much because you want to be able to manage the line tension. For this trick, you need to bend your knees just a little bit more than usual because you got to push a little bit more off the wake than you do for the 180. So it's really important to actually bend your knees but not your lower body position. So as you enter the trough, give a nice edge by leaning down the rope and then get ready to push your hips out at the wake. As you stand tall through the wake, you're going to want to push quick, but be ready to suck your knees into your chest. Bringing your knees up to your chest and your heels down towards your butt. The board stays compact and doesn't get over your head so you're not too flippy. And grabbing the board actually just helps you get the leverage to actually make the handle passes and pull on the rope. So it's kind of a natural thing that happens with off-axis spins. So even if we're not trying to teach the spin with a grab, like if you see a variation on one side of the screen that doesn't have a grab and on the other side you'll see a grab, it's because a lot of riders feel more natural grabbing the board even though adding a grab seems a little bit harder. For the landing, again, you're going to have to move the handle across your body and then move it again towards the wake to get in the toe side edging position. So you're actually doing a bunch of stuff with a handle on this trick. You have a handle pull on the way up, you have a handle pass to do the 180, and then you have another handle pass and a handle move across your body, and then another handle move to get yourself into the toe side edging position. So you need to really work the handle on this trick.
The heel side front side off axis 540 is a great trick to try immediately after landing your off axis 360 because the board naturally wants to turn to 5. Initiate this trick the same as your off axis 360 to keep the board from flipping too much. Remember, this trick is a spin, not a flip.
So let's talk about the heel side, front side, off axis 540. Now earlier we explained the 360, and this actual spin is more natural than the 360. So what you're going to do is you're going to let the natural rotation take over, and it's going to want to turn to 540. So you're just going to help it, you're just going to let it spin and just make sure you get in the right position on the landing. Off the trampoline, you want to make sure you push your hips out and begin to draw that axis with your elbow. Really act like you're going to elbow someone in the face behind you, and that will get you on the right axis. And make sure you keep your heels down towards your butt so you don't flip too much. If your heels get away from your butt on this trick, this can look like a roll to revert, and you don't want that to happen to your off axis 5. So make sure you keep your heels down. On the way down, make sure you move the handle across your body and push it back towards the landing side wakes so you get in the toe side edging position. Again, the roll to revert's not on the progression tree, but it is something that will help you with this trick. So take some time and learn that flip, and it'll actually get you ready for the heel side, front side, off axis 5 landing. When you get to the water, you want to use a middle position so you have leverage on the line, but you can still use your legs to push, and you're going to want to use a progressive edge. So make sure you start slow on your edge smoothly into the wake, but not too hard, because you don't want a lot of line tension, so you can still pull on the rope. And then draw that axis with your elbow off the top of the wake. Remember, if you're trying to get off axis, learn the off axis 180 first. These steps will pay off in the long run, and it'll really give you a good off axis position. If you skip those steps, a lot of times your off axis spins will be too flippy, and you'll have problems with handle passes. Whenever you flip too much and get inverted too much, the handle gets really tight and your board gets stretched out behind you. If you find the correct axis with your heels down towards your butt, the handle becomes very easy to manage and you can make the spins easy. Again, the handle is super important on this trick. If you don't move the handle for the second time on the way down, then you'll have problems with the landing and you'll usually slide out on your heels. Here you can see both riders leaning against the rope and increasing their edge. As they get to the wake, they get ready to stand tall and push their hips out behind them. You can actually see both riders have their hips moving backwards away from the boat already, so they're in the position to get the board out behind them. Here you can see that both riders. You also when you leave the wake, you might want to curl your shoulders forward. Not actually throw your upper body forward, but curl your shoulders forward. And what this will do is it'll round out your back and start the motion of your body coming forward just a little bit, but your hips getting out behind you, and it just helps you get into the position. Again, this is a natural rotation. It's more natural than the 360, so let the rotation flow and just make sure you work the handle and move it across your body to prepare for the landing. A lot of people kick out of this trick too early, so make sure you stick with it, land over your toes, and don't be afraid to go out the front a couple times to get over your toe side edge. Now with off-axis spins, you can add different variations like Olay spins. Here you have Keith doing an Olay 5. And basically what an Olay is you're spinning the 5, but instead of passing the handle, you're looping the rope over your head. And they call these Olay spins. Just really cool variations. Now the thing on Olay spins is you have to make sure you stay more flat, because if you get too off axis, then this can really look like a roll to revert because you're not passing the handle. So you have to stay flat and make sure you get your arm over your head with a flatter position. You're going to take off the same, you're going to pull the same to initiate the rotation, but instead of passing, you're just going to loop it around your head. And it actually helps to act like you're going to pass it by pulling the rope, behind your back, and then bring it back and then really throw it around your head to initiate the Olay spin. One of the most common grabs for this is a mute grab or a slob grab. These are really cool variations, and a lot of people are combining Olay spins with handle pass spins, like a Olay 720. And basically an Olay 720 is a Olay for the first 360 and then a handle pass for the second 360.
The heel side, backside, off-axis 540 is a very technical trick. The key to this trick is having a good heel side, backside, off-axis 180. I was able to do the 360s for a while, but it wasn't until I learned the 180 that I was able to do this trick. I like starting this trick off on the double up because it lets you think in slow motion.
The heel side, backside, off-axis 540 has really gained a reputation for being a really technical trick. The on-axis heel side, backside 5 has gained a reputation as being, a really stylish spin, and being able to do it off-axis just makes you more of a technical rider. So for this spin, let's start on the trampoline, and what you need to do is you need to mix a trip flip edge with this trick so you get booted over. And again, having that Indie Glide and 911 base is going to help you understand the position, so you should already have that down. By the time you get to the 5, you shouldn't even have to think about that anymore. You should naturally be able to get into the position. Now once you get into that position, you're going to have to yank on the handle really hard to create a slack line and be able to spin far enough to land blind for the 540. In the Spectrum tree, I'd say the heel side, backside, off-axis 180 is the most important trick because of the blind landing. You've got to make sure you have a really strong blind landing so you can stick this trick and ride out of it. Now when you approach the wake on this trick, you want to make sure you start progressively, but at the wake you're going to want to really combine a trip flip edge really quick as you hit the wake. And what this does is it boots you over kind of backwards and gets you into the position to spin. As you leave the wake, square up your shoulders, push your hips out behind you, and then pull on the handle to rotate the spin. This all happens very fast. So you're going to want to spend a lot of time on the trampoline getting this, getting your rotation and building muscle memory for this trick. As you can see, when Ben leaves the wake, he really elbows the sky, and that kicks him over and gets the board out behind him. For this trick, you may want to get a little more off-axis so you roll into the blind landing a little bit better and get over your toes. I see a lot of riders take a short approach on this trick, and what that does is it forces them to edge only at the wake, because the roots, the Indie Glide, you need a progressive edge to get the board out behind you, kind of like a railie. For this trick, you need the line tension off the wake, and you need that push on the board. So make sure you shorten up your approach on this trick and really edge slow at the beginning and then drift, and then when you get to the wake, build your edge. But then at the top of the wake, you need to square up as much as possible so you get kicked over into the position. For this trick, you're going to want to use a seated position so it helps you switch that edge and square up at the wake. So make sure you sit your butt down towards the water and then push tall off the top of the wake. Here you can see the nose of the board is really high, and then off your back foot you want to push really hard, and that will kick you over, and that front shoulder will drop down as your elbow draws the rotation. When you get into these high level spins, you're not going to worry about how you're passing the handle as much because everything happens so quick, so you'll find different combinations of handle passes for each trick that will will actually make the trick smoother for you. So just make sure you pull hard enough to make it slack, and you'll eventually find the handle pass rhythm that works best for you. On the landing, make sure you bend over your toes for a switch blind landing. The toe side front side off axis 540 is one of the easier of the off axis spins. It should probably be done before the 360 version of the trick because of the easy heel side landing. The thing about this 540 is it could resemble a flip, in this case the scarecrow. So when you're doing this trick, make sure you keep your heels down to your butt so the rotation doesn't look like a flip. This spin or trick is important because it could lead to your first 720. Believe it or not, the toe side front side off axis 540 is probably one of the easiest off axis spins of all the off axis spins, even the 180s. Like, this trick is a lot easier than some of the 180s to learn. And a lot of riders actually learn this trick before any other off axis spin. When you're on the trampoline, you want to try to get into the toe side position as much as possible to mimic your edging position on the water. And from that twisted position, you're going to push off the trampoline by dropping your back shoulder, opening your front shoulder up, and drawing the rotation with your elbow by acting like you're going to elbow someone in the face. Now on this trick, you don't want to drop your shoulders or throw your shoulders into it too much. You want to try to keep your head level. So make sure that you draw the rotation with your elbow, bring your knees up to your chest. If you'll notice in this position, a lot of off-axis spins, the upper body is actually on axis and the lower body is just folded up, making the trick off axis. So that's kind of the key to off-axis spinning, is bringing your knees up to your chest and pulling your heels down to your butt. And I know I've said that a lot, but it's really crucial. For this spectrum tree, you're basically just going to use the spectrum tree to think about how the trick is made up. The tricks on the spectrum tree, most of them are really hard to do, or a lot harder to do than this actual trick, and you'll probably learn the 540 before you learn any of the other ones. But again, it does help you break down the trick and figure out how it works. For this trick, you're going to want to use a trip flip edge along with an ollie edge at the beginning. So drift into the wake, and then at the wake you want to stop your edge and square up. So start slow on your turn, come off your edge and go flat, and then get a little bit back on your heels at the wake. And again, this is one of those spins where you're going to have to manipulate the board. So you're going to make the board go up the wake first, the nose will be really high and you'll be behind the board at the wake, and then you're going to push off your back foot and go over the board. Another key point on this trick is to make sure you go over the handle with your upper body, and I like to tell people to actually look through the triangle of the handle. You can see Amber kind of do that right here. So you want to look through the handle, pull it into your waist so you get over the handle and advance yourself towards the boat, and then after you do that, you want to draw the line with your elbow. Right there you can see the elbow really draws the axis. A big mistake on this trick is actually spinning right as you hit the wake. You want to make sure you take this trick up and break it up into two parts. You want to stand tall off the wake and go up and over the handle before you even start spinning. And this is a problem that a lot of riders have. They start spinning as soon as they hit the wake, and they eventually do like handle pass scarecrows or even just scarecrows because it's more natural. So make sure you take the trick up. You know, it even helps to bring your front leg up to your chest or front knee up to your chest, and then make sure you go up and over the handle, then start spinning. You can see on the right, Amber really waits to start spinning. She's really getting her body into the off-axis position and pushing her hips out behind you. Then she actually spins the 540. This trick is a 540, but it's such a simple rotation that it doesn't even really feel like a 540. It's one of the easier off-axis spins. A lot of times it'll be the first 720 that riders learn because the 5 is such an easy spin. So on the way down you have a lot of time to actually spot your landing and pull another 180 for a 720. So dial in this trick, and then soon thereafter you'll learn your first 7. Now when you're grabbing this trick, you can again do this trick with different variations. You can grab in many different spots on the board, but along with those grabs you can also do Olay spins. Here you have Ben doing a nice Mclin grab, and since you have so much time on this trick, you can really bone the board out or add pokes to your grabs. So when you do the spin with a grab, you're going to have to really pause and do the grab first before you actually start spinning, and then you're going to have to work the handle really fast. So take your time, stand tall off the top of the wake, get the grab, and this will make you pause and go over the handle. And then work the handle really fast because you're going to have to rush the handle pass since you've been holding onto the board for so long. Whenever you grab the board, the trick becomes a little flatter. It gets closer to on axis. So make sure you use that trip flip edge so you get squared up and you still get off axis at the wake. Again, when it comes to grabbing this board, you can incorporate Olay spins into the 5. And a popular trend nowadays is doing Olay 7s. So a popular grab for the Olay spin is a mute grab. It's probably easier to do a method Olay 5, but the mute grab probably looks a lot better. For this trick, you're going to really want to square up at the wake and really kick yourself in the chest with your knees. So you bring that board in so you can grab it mute. And then again, act like you're going to pass the handle and then bring it around your head really fast for the landing.
The heel side, front side off axis 720 is much easier done off the double up, but it is possible to do it wake to wake. Make sure you have your 360s dialed and your 540s. From there, you just got to give it a bunch of attempts and you should be able to land it.
For the heel side, front side off axis 720, it helps to definitely get a little more inverted than usual. Flipping this trick a little bit more helps you get over the handle and get the slack enough to do all the handle passes. I know I said flip, and you don't want to flip your off-axis spins too much, but this trick, it definitely helps to actually get the board above your head more than usual and get more inverted. So as you push off the mat, make sure you push your hips out behind you. Still bring your knees up to your chest and your heels down towards your butt, but allow the board to get a little bit more over your head. You also want to take the trick up and be patient. You want to really push off the wake hard, take the 180 up into the air, and then yank as hard as you can on the handle to initiate the spin and create the momentum enough to spin the 720. If you make the first 360 more inverted, what it does is it puts you back over your heels for the landing. If you stay a little bit more flat on the first 360, then when you come around, you usually land too much forward and you'll get pulled out the front. So try to stay a little bit more inverted. The most important trick on the spectrum tree for the 720 is probably the heel side, front side, off axis 360. It may help you to be able to do these off the double up and out in the flat, so you're used to actually stopping your rotation with a hard impact, because the 720, it spins really fast and you have to understand how to stop yourself so you can stick that landing. When you're ready to take it to the water, you're definitely going to want to sit down a lot on this trick so you can really push off the wake. And another thing that helps is actually bringing your front knee up as you leave the top of the wake. This helps you get into the off-axis position and it helps you get a little bit more inverted. One thing that you want to think about is not pulling too early with your arms. You want to leave your arms relaxed. You want to ride through the wake and wait before you pull on the handle. sometimes riders get a little bit anxious with the handle and they actually pull in too early before they leave the wake. And what this does is it messes up the timing with the slack in the rope. The rope will be slack right off the wake, but then it'll be too tight on the way down, and usually the rider will miss the second handle pass. So be patient, take the trick up, and then pull on the handle. What this will do is it'll make the line tight as you leave the wake, but then it'll make it slack right in the middle for the whole way down, and you'll be able to make those handle passes a lot easier. Right here you can see how slack the line is. Andrew has advanced himself so far towards the boat, he probably has, 5 feet of slack in the rope. But the boat's moving forward so fast, it'll eventually pull that slack out, and then the line will be tight for the landing. Here you see how Andrew's actually moving the handle to stop his rotation. And this is really key in sticking those landings and stopping rotations, because you'll be spinning really fast and the board will actually want to spin further. This trick has become popular with grabs because you have to wait before you spin. So throwing a melon grab or a nose grab or even a slob grab into this spin is actually pretty manageable. So after you get the 720 down, you might want to add a grab to the 720. A lot of riders actually grab the board to learn this trick, and the reason they do that is because it makes them wait and take the trick up. So you might want to try the same thing. Here you can see a comparison of the trick without a grab and with a grab. Both tricks have the same exact position at the wake, but you can see on the left, Andrew has already taken his hand off the handle so he can grab the board. What you have to do when you do this is you have to pull harder with one arm, so it's going to take a little bit more arm strength to initiate the handle pull and get enough slack to pass the handle.
The toe side front side off exit 720 is a great place to start in the quest for your first 7. I can't stress the importance of having a strong 540 and solid switch backside landings for this trick. Let's start dialing this 7 in on the trampoline.
Alright, for the toe side front side off axis 720, really concentrate on your switch blind 180s. Again, it helps to get a little bit more inverted on this trick so you get more over your toes on the landing, but make sure you don't flip too much and keep your heels down towards your butt. This trick has a close relation to the crow mob, so if you spend some time and learn the crow mobius first, you'll actually have a lot more success with this trick. So off the mat, you want to make sure you push your hips out behind you and really elbow the sky to draw your rotation. For this trick, you want to finish the 540 early so you can spot your landing and have enough time to pull another 180. What I like to tell riders is to do a 5 and then spot the whitewash and then keep pulling on the handle and advancing yourself so you have enough slack to get into the blind position. Many riders learn this trick first without a handle pass, but it's important to actually learn the trick with a handle pass so eventually you can work your way towards 900s. Again, probably the most important part of this spectrum tree is the word blind. You see it in parentheses on the right, and that really stresses that you need to be able to land blind to set up for the landing of the 720. When you take it to the water, you're going to want to use a more seated position on toe side, and you're going to want to start a little harder on the outside so you can use a little bit of a trick flip edge at the wake. So basically what I mean by this is you're going to start harder and then switch edges at the wake so you square up and get kicked over into the rotation. So edge hard at the beginning, back off your edge, get over your heels, and then trip yourself at the wake so you can get into the 720 position. Again, you want to leave the handle out so you can go up and over the handle and then really yank in to create slack enough to do the 720. Here you see Brad landing blind, and this is an option that a lot of people take to actually land the trick at first, and then they work their way towards handle passing. Remember, when you're landing blind, you definitely want to keep your head facing away from shore. As soon as your head comes around, you'll fall back on your heels, and you can see on the left, Andrew actually turns his head a little bit too far and he lands back on his heels. And I think this might be because he's used to doing 900s, and it's hard to stop your rotation if you're spinning really fast. So try to get into a good habit of looking away on the 720, so that way when you bring your head around, you'll naturally want to spin to 9. So you'll distinguish the two rotations. So here we have both riders right before the trough edging, but getting ready to back off their edge so they can square up. Right there you can see they manipulate the board so the nose of the board goes up the wake first, and then they'll push off their back foot heavily to kick themselves into the off-axis position. Again, on these 720s, you definitely want to get more inverted, so you want to throw your upper body towards the boat and down towards the water a little bit more. So it helps you get into more of an off-axis spin, and that way you'll fall into a toe side landing. As you're coming down for the trick, again, remember to spot the wake, give another tug on the handle, and really make sure that you get that handle behind your back and in the small of your back as fast as possible so you can get in the blind position.
We finally end this DVD off with the unobtainable 900. Well, several years ago it seemed unobtainable, but now people are doing them with grabs and without the aid of a double up. So many things need to go right to make the 900 work. If you add 2.5 rotations, a pinch of pop, and a large dose of rotation, you've got a great recipe for the toe side, front side, off-axis 900.
The last trick that we're going to talk about is the toe side off-axis 900. And this is probably the first 9 that you're going to learn, because the off-axis position helps you spin really fast, and it has a heel side landing. Be able to fall back on the rope and land back on your heels really helps you, sketch out of your first ones. So on this trick, you're definitely going to want to yank as hard as you can on the handle to get as much slack as you can to make all the handle passes. But most importantly, you're going to want to take it to the trampoline first and really engrave this trick in your muscle memory. Remember, try to get ahead of yourself, so try to do 1080s on the trampoline, and that'll make spinning the 900 feel a little bit more easy. When you're ready to take this trick to the wake, you definitely have to spin fast for this trick. What you'll notice as you leave the wake is the rider will actually start slow and then spin fast on the way down. So it's slow motion at first, and then all of a sudden the trick spins really fast after the rider sets his axis and starts his rotation. Right here you can see Andrew has his arms all the way out, and what this does is it sets him up to pull. He's going to start his edge slow, and then he's eventually going to square up at the wake and pop the trick straight up first before he starts spinning. So his arms are relaxed and he's getting ready to push off the wake and square up. On this you really have to manipulate the board, so make the board go up the wake first and then push off your back foot so you get over the handle. Right here you can see Andrew is really pulling his elbows into his sides and advancing that rope. and he pulls the rope all the way through. Even though he takes one hand off the handle, he's pulling it all the way, straight away from the boat and advancing as far as he can. And that's the key to this trick, is really pulling on the handle. If you can do some sort of handle passing drill on land, it'll definitely help you for this trick. What I do sometimes is I take an old handle and I take the handle apart and I make the handle heavier by putting lead inside the handle, or wrapping duct tape around the handle to increase the weight and size of the handle, and then I sit in one spot and pass it as fast as I can. The other thing you can do is you can tie some bungee cord to a handle and fill a milk jug with sand and stand in one position and actually swing that around your body. And what this does is it builds strength in your arms, and when you're swinging it around your body, the centrifugal force is always pulling the handle away from you, so it'll increase your strength for handle passes. This position is ideal for tricks taken big, but if you're going to throw a grab in with it, it kind of helps. When you're edging heel side, stop smiling. Blind positions are when you land a trick blindfolded.
What is heel side?
No, I'm ready. Let's do it. The first position we're going to talk about is heel side edging. First position we're going to talk about is the heel side position. The heel side position is when you're leaning over the heel side edge of the board.
I can look at you.
What? We're never going to get anything done. All right. Switch stance is riding with your opposite foot forward. Right foot. Switch stance is riding with your opposite. God, I can't say opposite. Opposite foot. All right. Switch stance is riding with your opposite foot forward. Make sure the lens is clean.
Just when I thought it was safe to get better, New Albany sent me